Welcome everybody. I'm Paul Murray from the Australasian Railway Association team. Today for our community of practice session, we'll be exploring navigating the National Signalling Framework. So joining me today is Mathew Sekulitch. So I guess if we jump to the next slide, Matt, we'll just give a high level agenda overview. We'll have a snapshot of the national framework. We'll have a bit of an update on how adoption's going. Matt will do a bit more of a deeper dive on Victorian uptake and the update and how things are going there, which will be a great lessons learnt for the rest of the country. And then we'll spend some time going through some workforce planning tips. Next slide, Matt, which I think you wanted me to do this one.
Yeah, sure.
Someone says they cannot hear in the chat. Can you hear me? Okay, very good. Yeah, and the first little bit is nothing particularly important. So I guess this is where we get a bit more into the crux of it in terms of why do we need and want a national signalling framework. Well, we really need to and want to move away from duplicate roles, and this will lead to significant reduction in costs. And with the ability to have generic and therefore portable roles, these common requirements should and will in time be accepted by all networks, and then there'll be a reduced set of network requirements specific to each individual network around the country. So think of it as effectively your foot in the door. So the overall intent is to improve portability of the workforce and reduce costs as per the overall Rail Industry Worker Program. Next slide, please, Matt. So in terms of an adoption update, for many on the line, our signalling working group gets together on a fortnightly to monthly basis, and we have excellent representation from the major networks around the country and the state jurisdictions, principal contractors, and also some of the major suppliers of signalling resources and talent from the country. Victoria is, I guess, really leading the way, which Matt will discuss in more detail shortly. Western Australia have made a commitment to adopt the national roles in the coming months via PTA WA. And ARTC obviously have been working closely and following closely with what's happening in Victoria, and with the change of financial year, we're assured that they'll be getting stuck into reviewing and adopting the national signalling job roles. South Australia, broadly across all of the different disciplines for job roles, updating and working through a review at the moment, not just signalling. And Queensland and New South Wales are probably a little bit further behind with various things going on in regards to things like reorganisations, just awareness and I guess navigating things like industrial relations and enterprise bargaining agreements. But we get updates every fortnight to month from representatives on where everything's up to. And I think I'll pass over to you now, Matt.
Sure. I've turned my camera off just from working from home. We may have some bandwidth issues, but bear with me. So Mathew Sekulitch is my name, work for the Victorian Infrastructure Delivery Authority, and we've been supporting both MTM and V-Line over the last 3 to 4 years with creation of a suite of courseware and updates to their respective documentation, competency documentation, and continue to support them going forward as we roll out the courseware over a 3-year period. So many on the call will be familiar. November 2024 is when both MTM and VLine documents were updated and a bulletin went out saying, this is what we are doing. We're transitioning across to adopting the national framework, and what does it mean for you? So the key message, and sorry if there's someone here that this language is completely familiar with, and others it may not be, but we've got a couple of topics to go through. But the key message is, before your current old MTM or VLine signal role, I'll say signal because there's a difference, before it expires, transition across to a national role. So you go into the RIW system, and in this particular case, there's the one that's highlighted in blue. There's an example of a national role. There's the example of the old signal roles from MTM and VLine, and then there's the new ones, the signaling assistant tester in this case with the word new at the end of it. So first and foremost is add the appropriate role to your worker profile, upload the relevant information, and submit the role for assessment. So now you've done the first part, which is transitioning to a national role. Now, how do you get your network role validated? So again, here, select the relevant network role that's new and attend the relevant course. Now, over the last probably 12 to 15 months, there's been a number of questions regarding to which course. There's still new questions and there's still old questions, but the key thing is, the one we get is, which course do I need to do? Some of the courses have a direct correlation to the role and others not so. So it's important that you jump on the MTA website, and as you can see here by the screenshot, you'll see the drop down up under the courses. You'll see signaling training, which is the important one you'll need to jump on. And here's the example of the design and testing courses that are available. There's 2 pathways, assessment only and initial. The key thing with the assessment only pathway, those people with a current role, a current MTM and VLine role, have the opportunity to just do the assessment only pathway, which is effectively a verification of current competence. Come in and do the assessment. If there's any pre-reading to be done, you'll be issued that, and come in and do the assessment, and all things going well, the person passes and the certificate is uploaded into the relevant MTM and VLine new role to validate that network requirement. You'll also find on here, there's the key information regarding each particular course. The most important part for everybody to understand and realise is the prerequisites. Probably the number one thing that MTA, as the enrolment sort of body for the suite of courseware, is that's that first step, is making sure that people are aware that they actually hold the relevant requisite prerequisites to get onto the relevant course. There's a brochure you can download which further expands on things, and you also then, if you believe you meet the prerequisites, you can start enrolling, or if you're a new person, register to create an account and enroll. Regarding one of the course dates, and this will lead into a couple of other frequently asked questions on what if there's no date available, and we'll get to that. But on the bottom tab there, you can see the signaling training calendar. I've got a screenshot here, and this is August that's coming up, and there's a verification tester course. And over the Monday through Thursday, there's a number of assessment only courses happening. And the back end of the month, basic signaling technology and intermediate, which will run over into September. So it's simply a matter of this. The number one FAQ we get is what happens if there's not a particular course available before your role expires. It's a matter of, we encourage your organisations to look at your workforce and understand when they expire. The landscape's changed a little bit. If your role is about to expire, you'd simply go and get find an assessor and get an assessment. You can't do that now. You've got to understand when your workforce expire and get them enrolled into the course before your role expires. If the date doesn't line up, reach out to MTA, let them know you've got a number of people. You might have a combination of some designers or testers who need to get an assessment only course. The MTA's got flexibility to providing the trainer can do a number of courses to get everybody into the same room and for the people to support the people doing the assessment only. I mean, a number of occasions we've run 3 people doing the basic signaling technology who are designers, and that afternoon we had some verification testers and function testers doing their assessment only. So it's important that it satisfies that requirement. If you don't have the minimum numbers, we can group everybody together and get everybody through. On the MTA website, under the MTA training information, there's a myriad of FAQs. On next slide, we'll go through the more common ones. One that was recently put online was, if my role has expired, what does that mean? You've got up to 6 months from your role expiring before you can enrol into a course. So previously, you needed to have a valid MTM or V-line signal role for you to enrol in the course. And if you didn't, well, you couldn't do the assessment only. You needed to do the initial course, which is additional dollars and time. So you've now got up to 6 months with an expired role to go and enrol. However, if you want to still work in that capacity, reach out to MTM or V-line, whoever you're working for, and seek an extension so that you can work in that capacity before the course date in the future. Most important tip, and I did talk about this already, get into RIW, run a report, understand when your workers expire, look at the calendar and see if you need to request dates be brought forward or whether you can manage your workforce. The key message is if MTA is not aware, we can't help. There's also an opportunity to stand up other courses. So whilst the calendar is static, if there is demand through a number of people requesting in, additional dates can be stood up as well. What if there's no course available? Links to the first one. We have stood up, as I say, we MTA, with supported by VIDA and MTM and V-line, have looked at standing up additional courses or additional dates. If an organisation wants to run a course specifically to them, that can be arranged as well. More recently, we've had a number of organisations who are currently working more in Queensland, because that's where the work is, looking at saying, hey, can these courses be done remotely? On the website, there is this FAQ and it talks about some of the courses do rely on you needing to go out to the Rail Academy at Newport. The signalling testing courses rely on the hardware that's out there. So naturally, those courses must be delivered at Newport. The design courses could be delivered remotely. There's no question with that. It's a traditional, providing we've got a screen and a traditional way of delivering a course. So if you've got the need to deliver a design course to upskill your workers in New South Wales or Queensland, reach out to MTA and explore that opportunity. With regard to, we've recently, VIDA and MTA had a discussion with the IRC in the UK to understand how they go about invigilating remote assessments. So people all around the world are remotely logged in to do an assessment that's being invigilated, and we're working with MTA to explore that, which I think gives greater flexibility on exactly where around the world your organisation and workforce might be. So watch that space with regard to can they be delivered remotely? But in essence, assessment only. There's no reason why assessment only courses can't be delivered remotely. That's both design and test, as all it is relying on an internet connection, invigilation by one of the approved trainers, and then the training or the assessment can be completed. Competency upgrades. If a worker has got a current role, it's still valid for another 12 to 18 months, and the worker needs to get a competency upgrade. You can't get a competency upgrade under the old signalling design and testing regime. You need to move across to a national role, get your assessment only pathway done, and as part of that national assessment is where you get your upgrade achieved. How long do you have to transition to a national role? Both MTM and V-line wanted all signalling workforce to transition across in a 3-year period. So those people who transition September, October of 2024, their current role will expire in 2028. However, those roles will be brought forward 12 months to make sure that everybody who wishes to still work for V-line and MTM transition across to a national role, complete the relevant training, and everybody then working in Victoria will have the relevant national role and network endorsement via the courseware. Can I upskill as part of transition? So what this means is that people are attempting to, we've had some examples of this. The answer is no, you can't upskill as part of transition. The previous FAQ about a competency upgrade, this is related to that. You can't just enrol in the next higher course. You must align yourself, transition across to your current signal role, to the new national role and the network endorsement, and then you enrol in the upskilled course where it's called the initial course. So assessment-only pathway is for that transition, and upskilling is where you do the full course, where you want to further develop your further develop your knowledge in either design or testing area. What if the role's expired? Some of you may recall on this particular COP, there was a hard and fast line in the sand that if your role expired, you couldn't enrol in the assessment only, and you had no opportunity other than to do the initial course. As I mentioned previously, the FAQ was released, giving people that flexibility that they don't need to reach out to either MTM or VLine for an extension. They can enrol in the next course with an expired role, provided it's within 6 months. But importantly, remember, if you still intend to work in that capacity, you still need to reach out to MTM and VLine for an extension request. Do you have to do assessment only? The answer is you don't have to. If you've got a current role, that pathway is easier for you to just enroll in that. You'll receive the course reading, do the course reading, and then attend the course, and you're good to go. But you could, if you were a bit rusty, you could enroll in an initial course if you wish to do that. Either certificate, whether it's issued through assessment only or the initial course, will validate the network role. Lastly, what does recertification look like? That's the million-dollar question at the moment. Our focus within VIDA and working with MTM and VLine is to focus on getting the courseware up and all the documentation in both competency systems updated to reflect it. And now the focus is on exactly answering this question as, well, if I'm going to need to be recertified, what does that look like? So watch that space with regard to that last FAQ. That's it from a point of view of a structured presentation as such, but if there are any questions on the national framework or network roles, or feel free to ask or drop them in the chat, or Amelia, what's your normal way of controlling this one?
Yeah, thank you. So usually people can drop questions into the chat. People can also, should be able to unmute if you'd like to raise your hand. We can address questions directly. So we can just hang out for a minute or two. We've got our first question. Yuha? Maybe the mic is not working. Okay. We seem to have an issue with unmuting. So apologies, everyone. We may just need you to type out your questions into the chat box.
Matt and I were anticipating a few, folks. Thanks, Ben. We've got the first one.
So first question from Ben, realistically, how far on the pathway towards adopting a national framework is QR?
Did you want to have a first stab at this, Matt, or would you like me to?
I think it's appropriate that you do this one, Paul.
Not a problem. So we have excellent representation from Queensland Rail on the signalling working group, and must be circa 12 months ago now. Queensland Rail showed a lot of interest in essentially templating what's been going on in Victoria, but obviously there are different network specific requirements. So that, I guess, mapping of the gap then is the important work that has to be done. So what we'll do is I'll raise this. We've got our signalling working group getting together tomorrow. I'll make sure they're well aware that industry is knocking on the door, and ask for a timeline to be communicated back.
Okay, we have a few questions here, so I'll just go through them in order. First off, what is the likelihood of having BST assessments conducted remotely, and when do you think this arrangement can be finalised? I have a few in my overseas team needing a renewal and transition to national roles.
Who was the question from? Would you mind reading that one out, Amelia? Was that Paul Russell?
No, that's Mukund.
So the question was, when would AST? So the calendar.
Oh, no, that question's BST, Matt.
Sorry?
It says BST for that one.
Remotely, was that the question?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Yes.
So on the MTA website, there's an area where you can get in contact with MTA. There's an FAQ that talks about remote delivery, which will bring up an example where helping you communicate to MTA. We've got 4 people that need to do BST assessment only, if that's your number. The more information you can provide will assist them in going, okay, how many people, where is it going to be? Do we need to fly one of our trainers over? The remote invigilation software is not an option at the moment, but the design courses, as many on the call would know, it's traditional. It's just a handbook and PowerPoint, and the assessment is in the learning and management system. So there is no reason why any of the design courses or any of the assessment only courses couldn't be done remotely. It's just about being clear with what your requirements are to MTA to understand, okay, how many trainers or different skill set trainers versus one trainer. We have a number of trainers that are approved to deliver all courses, which gives greater flexibility on the company asking the questions to try and get this off the ground remotely. There's no reason why it can't be done remotely today. So fill out the FAQ and send that through to MTA.
Thanks, Matt. We've got a question from Kelly that says, as part of the national framework, can international engineering qualifications only be assessed by Engineers Australia? When submitted for verification in RIW, assessments from overseas qualification units don't appear to be accepted.
Do you want me to have a crack at that, Paul?
Yes, please, Matt.
Sure. So if you went to the RIW website, opened up the matrix, you'll see there are a number of qualifications that are accepted. If the qualification is from a Washington Accord signatory country, it can be accepted. It depends. We're talking about the question hasn't asked, is the person working remotely or planning to work in Australia? That's a different point. But the matrix makes allowances for overseas qualifications to be accepted, providing they're Washington Accord signatory countries. And if it's not, if you've tried to upload it and it's been rejected, flick it across to Paul at the ARA, and
yep.
We've had a number of times where this has occurred where we've added new qualifications to the business rules. So don't think that it's been rejected and therefore that ends the argument. No, send the ticket through with the number, and we will certainly work at exploring it and expanding it.
And it's not an instantaneous process, Kelly, but we generally get it amongst the Brains Trust within a few weeks. Or again, if it's fairly straightforward, the business rule can just be put forward to the National RIW Matrices Committee if it's a really straightforward one.
Right.
Right.
So then we have a question from Paul that says, I'm currently making an application to attend an AST course, which I believe to be in September. Is this being delivered online, or is it a design course? As it is a design course, or would I have to attend the training centre in Newport?
Good question, Paul. Thanks for that one. AST has been recently piloted and is just having final tweaks and peer review. It's being tabled for approval for industry use next Tuesday, and therefore supporting the calendar as it is. Whilst on the FAQs, we do say that most courses or all courses on the calendar are delivered at Newport. There is flexibility. For example, the first intermediate signalling technology course we ran at 121 Exhibition Street, as it's convenient and close and easy to get to. Newport was also struggling with the grade separation that was happening out there. But the face-to-face courses are traditionally, they simply require audio-visual. And the beauty of the room that we've got at 121, there's dual monitors so that you can plug your laptop in and have access to, the signal arrangement plan on one screen and the notes on the other screen. So there is flexibility. At the moment, AST is planned to be delivered at Newport. If it's fully subscribed, there is no reason why we couldn't run that at 121 because it is a lot easier to get to. Reach out to me offline, Paul, on that one, and I'll monitor the uptake with MTA to see if we can get a decision made sooner than later at 121 or the RAN.
Great, thanks, Matt. Lucy has a question that's if an individual has a national role added to their profile and those roles are valid, can the equivalent MTM and V-line roles be removed?
So to just do a bit more context to that one, so the worker I'm assuming, is transitioned. So are you wanting the old role to disappear? I'm not an RIW aficionado. I don't know if that can occur. So in other words, you're just trying to limit what you're looking at to only show the new stuff as opposed to looking at the old roles, which clutters your user experience, if that's what I'm hearing there. I might need to come back to you on that specific answer because I don't know. I'm not an RIW guru.
Yeah, that I agree with Matt. That could work a couple of different ways, Lucy. So maybe touch base with us offline for a bit more context.
Great. And then we have a question from Daryl. He said, do you want to take, can you see that one, Paul?
Yeah,
okay.
Daryl must have been watching in some of our signalling working group meetings where we've been discussing and working on proficiency levels. Don't you think, Matt? So there's a lot of work been going on, Daryl, and exactly getting this, as per your question, your comment around competency relying on both theory training and which may include some practical assessment. How does actual workplace practice relate to the level of competency? So not in the current published version of the assessor framework, but in a future iteration of it, we've already tested extensively with industry a section which will form significant updates to provide clarity, much better clarity around proficiency levels and expectations. Anything you wanted to add on that one, Matt?
No.
Yep. Which again, Daryl, if you're interested in, by all means, happy to have Once's perspective as well.
Is it Yuha's question?
Excellent.
I'm just trying to see where we're up to.
Yep.
Yes, that's where
I currently hold principals design engineer role, which expires in 2028 February. Is my SOC valid? And so if it expires in February 28, you'll be 12 month. Bring that forward 12 months. So you'll be required to transition across by February 27. Feb 27. That's the first part. Can I just do AST assessment only to keep my same role? Yes. So principals design role is the same today and tomorrow. There's a principals design today and principals design tomorrow. What I can also add, the new principals designer role has got scheme and interlocking, two separate roles. One supported by IST, the intermediate signalling technology. The other one supported by AST, which is VANCE. A recent decision was made by MTM and V-Line to align ourselves better with the national role. The updates that we made, they're currently been drafted with MTM and V-Line's documents to just say the National Signalling Principles Designer and the MTM Signalling Principles Designer new and V-Line Signalling Principles Designer new. And what's incumbent upon you as an individual, and your timing's perfect here because this change will happen before Feb 2027, is that you need to pick, am I doing scheme or am I doing interlocking which are the two. That's the question you need to ask yourself. So if you're principally working with scheme, you do enrol in IST assessment only, and if you're working in the interlocking, enrol in AST assessment only. So you're quite fortunate in that regard. So in the next couple of months, the amendments to both MTM and VLINE's competency documents will be made. And as I one further comment is the National Signalling Principles Designer will now be the same name, Network Principles Designer, as opposed to the scheme and interlocking as it does now. Hopefully that answers Ulysses Yuha's question.
Great, thanks. We don't have any more questions just at the moment. Matt and Paul, perhaps if you'd like to wrap up, and we can hang out for another 5 minutes in case anyone thinks of another question.
Yeah, if I can just, the number one takeaway, I mean, we're working with organisations just to try and help them with their mindset. Run the reports now, find out when your workers are expiring. You don't have that flexibility to just call up an assessor and get an old SOC assessment done. Look at the calendar, try and group your people together, reach out to MTA if you need to get an assessment-only course stood up, or even if you want to get an initial course stood up, reach out to MTA. They'll forward the information through, and then MTA can try and then stand up appropriate assessment-only or initial course to support your needs. Thanks, Paul.
No worries, Matt. No, I'd just like to really thank the group for coming along. Quite a few people, considering it's more or less lunchtime for a few people, and everyone just about stayed to the very end. If you've got any questions, please do reach out. Our signalling working group is, I would without a doubt say, the most progressive and proactive rail industry working group that we've got. So if anything does come up or needs to be considered or looked at, we're here to work together. So